Welcome back to Movie Shortens. Follow us today to a 1997 American horror movie called I Know What You Did Last Summer. Before we start, be aware, there are spoilers. On the 4th of July, the four friends including Helen, Julie, and the two boyfriends Barry and Ray are celebrating along with graduation. Helen becomes the queen of the ball and the friends are so excited for it. They decide to drive to an isolated beach to spend their last summertime together. The two couples have some fun after that. At midnight, Barry is the owner of the BMW, but he is too drunk to drive the group back to town. Ray is then tasked with that. En route, Barry continues to act like a fool by shouting and messaging with a bottle of alcohol. Suddenly, Barry spills the liquor in the car, distracting Ray. The ride gets out of control and the car hits something. They immediately stop the car and check what they've hit. Probably it's just a deer. Barry keeps complaining that his father will kill him for ruining the new car. Julie then finds a boot on the ground and screams out loud when she sees a real human being at the corner of the road. The four realize they've hit a pedestrian and his face is unidentified due to the mass injuries. While they argue whether or not to report the case to the police, a car approaches. It is Max, their classmate. Ray has to pretend that they have trouble with intoxicated Barry, and Max doesn't need to worry about it. The boy then leaves without any further concern. At this point, Barry decides to dump the body to save the four's bright futures. At the dock, Julie and Ray still hesitate about the decision, but Barry and Helen take control this time. Barry tells the friends, let's just pretend the man is an escaped lunatic with a hook. Suddenly, the body becomes alive and grabs Helen's crown. The friends instantly throw his body in the river. As Helen insists on having her crown back, Barry jumps to the river to save it. While struggling to pick the crown, the man suddenly opens his eyes on Barry, scaring him. The boy quickly surfaces in fright. Barry makes the three swear to never talk about this again. 1 year later, Julie comes back to her home. She looks very bad, and over the conversation with her mother, we learn that Julie has been away without any phone call or visit. She even gave up the scholarship to college after that night. Her mother then gives her a letter, but there's no return address. Upon opening it, Julie finds a piece of paper with a message. I know what you did last summer. In panic, she runs to Helen's family wedding store and asks for her phone number in New York. Just then, Julie gets to see Helen, who reveals to return home as things didn't work out in New York. The two secretly talk over the letter, which makes Helen's sister, Elsa, share a suspicious look at the two. The girls decide to meet up with Barry. He turns aggressive and claims that no one can know about that night. As the three discuss the possibilities, Barry remembers Max, who drove over at that time. He immediately heads to the docks where Max is working. Barry threatens to kill Max with an ice hook, although Max swears that he doesn't understand a word in Barry's accusation. On the way back, the three reunite with Ray, who is now a fisherman. We learn that the two couples didn't maintain the romantic relationships after the accident. During this time, Max is still pissed at what Barry did to him. He returns to work and spots a shadow over the steam. While figuring out who it is, Max is killed by the same ice hook that Barry used to take to threaten him. The unseen person then drags Max's body away by the hook. At night, Barry goes to the gym as usual, being reassured that things with Max are handled. In the changing room, Barry hears some strange noises. He then sees a shadow passing by the bathroom. Strangely enough, he finds a photo of his BMW with the message in the back, I know. His jacket is also missing, so he asks the gym owner for it. The guy then replies that there are only two of them so far for the night. As he rushes out of the locker room, Barry notices his car turn on and back down the road. Barry pursues, only to have the driver run him down. The driver gets out of the car and stands over him wearing a dark fisherman's rain slicker and wielding a large ice hook. Barry begs him to leave him alone, saying sorry for what happened that night. The man, however, doesn't hurt Barry. Barry wakes up in the hospital with three of his friends. He can't give the police any further information rather than a man in a slicker with an ice hook. Ray and Julie again bring the topic of telling the police the truth, but Barry and Helen are strongly against it. Julie then tells him she has been doing some digging and the individual they disposed of was named David Egan. In the local library, Helen and Julie begin to look for David's personal details. David's girlfriend, Susie, was also found dead on the 4th of July 4 years ago. They think David may still be alive and is living in town with his relatives. They go all the way to Missy, one of David's family members. Pretending the car stalled down the road, the girls meet with Missy. Inside the house, Helen comes across the black rain slicker. They believe Missy could be that mysterious person. After a little chit-chat with Missy, Julie learns that the Egans have been in trouble since David's death. Missy is also off their list of suspects. Missy then reveals that although David didn't have many friends back at the time, during the funeral there was a boy named Billy Blue who paid a visit and stayed long at David's grave. On the way back, Helen assumes that David was waiting for them in the road so they can hit him on the exact same day his girlfriend Susie died. Julie argues this is all their fault and they have made a family devastated. She then drives off in Helen's disappointment. Helen returns to her bedroom not knowing the man with the hook followed her soon after that. In the morning, Helen wakes up and becomes horrified when the crown is placed in her head. Someone slashed her hair in the night and drew "soon" on her vanity mirror. Terrified, Helen smashes the mirror with her bare hand. Julie picks up Helen's phone soon after that. She drives to see Helen, and in her car, Julie sees a hat in her back seat. Julie pulls the car over and reluctantly opens the trunk, only to find Max's corpse full of crabs crawling all over his body. She immediately runs to Helen and Barry for help. When the three of them get back, the trunk is clean. Barry thinks Julie is hallucinating, but she swears she saw Max's body with Barry's missing jacket. Barry, without saying anything, heads straight to Ray and punches him in the face. He believes Ray is after everything. However, Ray denies and explains that he too got the same letter. Julie decides to visit Missy again to ask more questions about David Egan and the visitor, Billy Blue. Helen and Barry are assigned to go to the July 4th parade in case the unseen man shows up again. Helen and Barry then have to watch each other's backs at the parade. At the parade, Helen sees the Slicker Man and tells Barry to find him. However, upon reaching the man, Barry realizes it is not the same one he met the other night. Meanwhile, Helen spots more and more men in slickers. As the parade passes by a building, she notices a shadowy figure in the black rain slicker, revealing an ice pick in a threatening way. Back at Missy's house, Julie shows Missy the school book, attempting to find out who Billy Blue is. However, Missy reveals that David meant to kill himself last July, and it wasn't an accident at all. He went up to the coast to die where Susie died, as the whole town had blamed him for Susie's death. Missy then presents Julie with a suicide note that was left by David, which reads, "I will never forget last summer." Julie thinks that the handwriting matches that of the note she received. She then tries to convince Missy that her brother is not dead. However, Missy soon grows upset by Julie's ravings and orders her to leave the property. At the Croker pageant night, Helen sees Barry being murdered by the killer. She runs to the balcony, but the crowds prevent her, thinking her as a troublemaker. They rush upstairs with a cop and look around, but there's no evidence of the fisherman killer or Barry. The police officer believes Helen is hallucinating and offers to drive her home. On the way, the cop finds a road that is stopped by a barrier. He instead has to take the alley. Upon seeing a fella having car trouble, he gets out to help, only to come face to face with the killer. The officer is murdered with the ice hook, although Helen tries her best to warn him. Helen manages to break out of the police car and rushes for her family's store, where her sister Elsa lets her in before the fisherman can catch up with her. As Helen dials 911 upstairs, Elsa goes and locks all the doors as Helen commanded. Before Elsa can do so, she is slashed to death by the killer. Her body is carried along by the hook. Upon hearing Elsa scream, Helen comes to check on her sister, only to find Elsa's body in the bathroom. Helen is then chased by the killer down the road to a small alley where she is killed tragically. The fireworks and the crowds make her screaming become useless. Meanwhile, after visiting Missy, Julie comes to see Ray and reveals her findings. David and his girlfriend Susie were in a car accident 4 years ago. Susie died, but David survived. Susie had a father named Ben Willis, according to the research. Her theory is that Ben blamed David and killed him a year later, making it look like a suicide. On the way home, Ben was hit by the group. David Egan was not the victim that night. As the two talk, Julie notices Ray's boat is named Billy Blue. Julie is shocked and believes it is Ray who is the killer fisherman. She runs away from Ray. Their chase is stopped by a fisherman who knocks Ray unconscious on the floor and tells Julie to get into his boat for her safety. Upon entering the man's boat, Julie comes across photos and other articles about her, Helen, Barry, and Ray. She soon learns that she is on Ben's boat. She is chased all over the boat. Meanwhile, Ray regains consciousness and steals a boat to save Julie. Eventually, Julie winds up in an ice room to store fish and finds the corpses of Helen and Barry. Ray takes a small motorboat to catch up with Ben's boat. In the end, Ray attempts to rescue Julie with the ship's rigging, causing Ben to lose his arm while carrying the hook and plummeting over the side. However, Ben's body is never found after that. On the ground, Ray explains to Julie that he went to visit Missy because he was guilty and needed to know who they had hit. He declares his love for her and the two embrace. A year later, Julie is a sophomore and is traveling to New York with Ray. She receives a letter similar to the one she received from Ben, but it only contains an invitation to a pool party. Julie returns to the steam-filled bathroom. On the shower door, "I still know" is written. Then Ben jumps over the shower door and attacks her. Like and subscribe to watch more videos like this. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. That really helps my channel. Thanks for watching.